Uh-oh.
I definitely didn't do it on time.
Welcome back to the Jam Room Podcast. We drink now on the podcast. Actually, this is not the first time we drank with Third Floor when they were here, I guess.
It's only if we record in the evening, and that's how you know when we're recording these. Did we mention that we're going to get coffee later?
Yeah, exactly.
Or are we drinking a beer?
Yeah, but we're specifically excited today because not only we're drinking beer, but we're drinking beer from the final episode of Season 1's Jam Room Podcast. We're drinking Columbia Craft. They sponsored us. We're very excited about that. They sponsored us for one episode and one episode only. Shout out to our friend Maz over there. We love Maz very much. He is the absolute man, like one of our favorite people. Thank you, Maz, for the beer and the sponsorship. Those are definitely not the same thing. We're definitely not just getting beer because of the sponsorship. That's not what's happening. Crazy people to assume that. Anyways, that was a lot of yapping. Welcome back to Columbia, South Carolina. We're here in the Jam Room studio.
Beautiful Columbia, South Carolina.
Beautiful Columbia, South Carolina. It's been kind of rainy.
Really rainy.
It's been very rainy.
Well,
we appreciate you being here. It's going to look a little different because you boys running the video behind the mic. That's kind of weird and random.
Sam Bryant Creative is working the video today.
He's being creative.
I'm being creative.
He's using his creative abilities.
Amen.
Cheers to that.
We're really excited because we got a really cool guest here for the last episode of Season 1. Manning Feldner. Manning, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank y'all for having me.
How you doing?
This is actually really cool. I've been looking forward to this for a while since we first mentioned it. And I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're happy that you're here as well. Mm-hmm. How you doing? You just got back from Vegas. Tell us a little bit about that.
Just got back from Vegas. We spent five days in Vegas. We played 4 nights out there at the Doghouse, spelled with an A, not an O, because they wanted to spell it the cool way.
Of course.
Played 4 nights out there, stayed 5 nights, and we just got back last night, probably 6 or 7. And then the final night, we finished our show at 11. Then we stayed up, and we got to the airport at like 3 and never slept, and got home last night at like 6 o'clock. So
that's crazy.
All right.
Today's been a sleep day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sleep all day and try to catch back up. But it was a really fun run. We were super grateful for the opportunity to do that, and we had a blast. It was a cool trip just to do with the boys as a band.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
We had a great time.
That's very special. I'm honestly very jealous of that. That's very cool that you guys could do that. Man, I definitely want to talk more about the whole Vegas thing later. But for now, I'd love for you to just kind of offer sort of your story with music, your story playing guitar, what got you into it, when was the moment you kind of knew you wanted to do it as a full-time career, and the different bands you've played with up until this point.
Okay. Guitar started with my dad. He was a guitar player. He always listened to really good music. He was a big Allman Brothers fan, and I remember being a kid and just riding down the road and hearing the solo on Blue Sky for the first time, and it is something magical about it. Yeah. And I immediately that kind of got the thoughts going. I'm like, all right, whatever that is, I need it in my life. And then I think when I was 5th grade or 6th grade, I did the talent show and I played the national anthem.
It's awesome.
Nice.
That was the first time I ever played on a stage in front of anybody. And then shortly after that, I started playing in church. And then once I got in high school, I found kind of a local band. And when I got to college, I met Nick through kind of an open mic thing. And one of my friends was there, and she put me in contact with Nick, and we started making music and have been ever since. But the way I got into guitar was Dwayne Allman and Jimi Hendrix.
Awesome.
And I could also throw Dickie Betts in there, but I remember being probably in middle school and the song Jam 292 comes on, Hendrix song.
Yep.
And I was just like, whatever that is, I need to learn that now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been it. It's just I fell in love with guitar. I'm addicted to playing guitar. It's so much fun every time I sit down.
It's awesome.
It's never practice. It's just playing the guitar, and that's fun.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
It probably consumes way too much of my headspace, but
it's not uncommon. I would say for musicians.
It's not a bad thing to think about a lot.
No. There's definitely worse.
It's serving you well, obviously. So
it's been a fun journey.
Yeah. So was there? I feel like you might have already kind of touched on this, but was there a moment where you kind of knew you wanted to do live music as a full-time job and career? When was that moment?
I don't know. I can't boil it down to a specific moment, but I do remember the first few times I've played on stage anywhere. I was very interested in that, and I was like, okay, this is really fun. And
Sure.
it was like a huge, burst of adrenaline, and like it made you happy. And when you did a good show, I felt just grateful that we played that and rewarded in a sense. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I practiced for this show, and now it turned out good, and like whatever that is, I want to keep doing it. So
Yeah.
probably just the early days of playing gigs just got me hooked, and
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, and enjoyed setting up an amp and miking it up and playing it, and actually taking guitar outside of my bedroom.
Sure.
So,
Do you remember your first ever paid gig?
first ever paid gig, I do. I was 16 years old. I just started driving, and I was playing with a band, with my buddy's dad's band.
Wow.
His name's Jackson. His dad's name's Kevin. If they watch this, shout out to both of them. But we played that first gig, and it was kind of like a 3 or 4 song set. I made $20. But the funny part about it was, as soon as I walk in the bar, it was one of those smokers bar, and the whole place, it was like a fog machine went off. Just everybody had one lit up.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, my eyes started burning. And I was like,
Yeah.
pick out the dude who doesn't belong, and everybody would have pointed to me.
That's
And
hilarious.
we played, had a great time, and that was the first time I ever got paid to play guitar.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a funny story. I'll never forget that. My clothes smelled like cigarette smokes for about a week.
I bet. Yeah. Oh, that's so
It's
funny.
like in your hair, like.
Yeah.
But it was so fun. It was cool. It was definitely, I remember that one specifically. Like, okay, I made money to be here, and that was kind of cool.
Definitely. Yeah, that's like such a specific feeling, like that first time that you get paid to play music, and you're like, oh my gosh, I did something I already enjoyed, and I got financially compensated
100%.
for that. That's crazy. Because I feel like especially like in this day and age, like there's so much of this kind of like vibe and pressure of like you gotta work, you gotta make money, and for almost everyone, the only way to do that is doing something you like either can tolerate or like worse, So it's like, I feel like as a musician, like that first moment you get of like, there's this thing I really enjoy doing, and like I can bridge the gap between like that and making a living. Like that's just such a extremely gratifying feeling, and it really is like so achievable. I think more than a lot of people will like realize, but that's awesome. Very cool.
100%. I also think like sometimes working can give you a interesting perspective on playing music.
Yeah.
So like if you spend your day and you're working whatever job, when you do get home and get to sit down with your guitar, your mind has been occupied all day by something else.
Yep.
So when you sit down on that, it's like, okay, I always feel a lot more creative.
Yeah.
If I haven't played all day or something like that. And
Definitely.
so I did a lot of that when I was younger too, like working and then coming back home and sitting down on the guitar, and it just felt better than when I left it. So
Yeah,
That's cool.
I've definitely felt that. Like there's so many days or there's so many weeks that go by where you play, like if you have a bunch of gigs lined up or you're just practicing a lot, playing a lot. Excuse me, this is all the Columbia Craft beer. Thanks again, Columbia Craft. There's gonna be a lot more burps this episode than normal.
another shout out to Mass.
Oh yeah, the man. You're gonna hear that a lot this episode. We freaking love Mass. Anyways, what I was getting to is like you have all these weeks where you're playing like hours and hours of guitar every day, and like that's great, and you can like I will never get sick of that. But like you're saying, like you have also some times where you're gone for a couple days or whatever's going on, and you return and you're like, oh my gosh, like it just feels different. Like it feels better. It feels more like original and like fresh. Like that's like one of the best feelings I would say.
Yeah.
It really is. I had kind of, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
I had kind of experience with that in Vegas because I didn't fly this guitar out because the Microsoft shut down. I was worried it was going to get lost, and like that is my number one
Yeah.
guitar.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I didn't want to fly it out, so I flew with my other Les Paul, and that's a great guitar. It sounds phenomenal, but it wasn't that, and I'm
Wasn't
so
Goldie?
used to playing that. That was the first thing I did when I got home. I took my suitcase inside and went straight to the garage, and I plugged that up, and I was like,
Home.
breath of fresh
Yeah.
air. I was
Yeah.
like, that's where it's at.
Dude,
So-
going into as much detail as you're willing to go into, like, give us the backstory of this, like, beautiful, unique, like,
Okay.
like guitar.
This will be fun. So my dad gave me this the day I graduated high school, and it was his, and I've pretty much played every gig on it since then. Every
Yeah.
gig that I could, and with the exception of a handful of gigs where I got a new guitar and tried them out. But
Sure.
this is definitely the one that has seen my best moments, my worst moments, the moments that are in my head that no one else knows other than this guitar. Like it's that guitar.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing special about it other than that it was my dad's, and it's
Sure.
sentimental to me.
That's awesome.
But I just think that once you get comfortable enough on something, you really begin to express yourself, because
Yeah.
you quit thinking about the gear and you quit thinking about the pickups and you just play.
Yeah.
That's how I feel on this guitar. I just
Exactly.
play it. I
That's
don't
awesome.
have to think about, how it's set up or any of that, or if it's in tune, because it does that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I feel like I know you pretty well at this point, and like I can confidently say that like this is probably not something you think about, but it's cool that like you show up to a gig that Manning Feldner is playing at. It's like he's gonna be playing this like freaking older, like kind of beat up gold top that's just gonna sound like unbelievable. Like that's just
I
like
appreciate that.
it's a cool thing to like have one guitar. I mean it's great to like try out a bunch of different guitars too, like play Strat one gig, play 335 another gig. Like that's cool too, but like when you have like one guitar, this is this guy's number one. Like you will almost always see him with that guitar. But I feel like that's really special for sure.
I'm an appreciator of the consistent things in life.
Definitely.
And that's why, I stick to one guitar most of the time. This guitar is actually turning 10 years old this year.
Oh,
It's
man.
2014.
You got to throw like a birthday party.
I should.
Like a
I should.
cookout
I should.
birthday party. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it didn't have a scratch on it when I got it. Not a single scratch. It was in perfect condition.
Not anymore.
Every scratch on it is a sign that it's been well loved.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
that it definitely has. It's been through some crazy gigs too, and some crazy traveling stuff. But
Sure.
every scratch, like I can tell you about when that happened, and
That's
it's
the
a
best.
huge ding on the back of the neck that
Yeah.
I was skateboarding and I fell and
Yeah.
had a tube screamer in the case sitting right under where the neck pocket is,
Oh,
and it
no.
took a big chunk out of the neck.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Just cool stories like that.
Yeah. No,
Every
it's cool to have
single
lore
scratch.
like that. Yeah, I mean, you would not think, like, looking at that guitar, you would not think it is only, like, 9.5 years old. Like, that is not the vibe that I think it gives off, but that's, like, definitely not a bad thing. For
I've
sure.
had a couple people ask me if it was a real 57. And I'm always like, I wish, but no. Maybe I don't actually wish. This one's... One day I might get the chance to play a 57,
Sure.
and I can almost guarantee you I'll like this one better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I get
It
that.
might not actually be better, might not
Yeah.
be worth more money, but this one's got the mileage on it.
Yeah.
Well, and when you get comfortable with an instrument, like I don't know, we went to Nashville, looked for acoustic guitars, and you tried all these like vintage guitars, and you were like, I don't know, it's just not it. And then you
not it.
you bought a brand new one, and you were like, no, this just feels right. And
Yeah.
It's whatever feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds the way you want it to sound,
And there's no other way to explain it. It's just it feels good.
Yep. Once you find what you like, stick with it.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed something else. The Sunburst Les Paul I took to Vegas, the frets were recently like done, and they were nice and polished up, and they're a lot bigger. Frets are so worn down on this that I'm really used to that. And I noticed
Yeah.
when I was playing the guitar with the big frets, I go to like slide up, I was missing, and I was like just going a fret short.
Yeah.
The frets being worn down is something that I actually really like, and I'm gonna go without a refret until I absolutely have to do it, and
Yeah.
then that day is gonna be a sad day. But
Yeah, I get that. I feel like also with like electric guitar, especially the way you play, like you're so all over the fretboard that it's like not inconceivable for the wear to be like kind of spread evenly enough across the guitar. I'm sure like luthiers listening to this and they're like, that's so completely wrong. But I don't know. It's just like my very like pseudoscientific thoughts. Like I feel like the way you play that, it's like it might be even enough to make like fret wear more manageable.
I think it is. I really think
Yeah.
it is. Like right up here where the cowboy chords are, you got a couple divots,
Sure.
but pretty much from the third fret down to whatever number that is,
Yeah.
those are all worn pretty evenly.
Yeah.
And they're usually worn from the D string to the high E. Like
Sure.
that's where the wear is.
That's interesting.
So,
Man.
The
I don't
tone
know.
is in the grit,
Yeah.
It's-
Tone is in the
the dirtier the better.
yeah. And you've gigged a lot in Myrtle, right? So I mean the salty, humid air
Everything
is
is rusted.
yeah, it's just gonna amp up the aging process of the
Oh,
guitar
yeah.
like 5 times, I'd imagine.
I'm waiting for it to turn green. It's
Yeah.
a couple spots I can see it coming through.
That's cool.
yeah.
But yeah, that salt air. I remember like the first time I played that guitar near the beach, within a couple gigs, all the screws were rusted.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's crazy.
And I thought it was cool. I mean, it looks better that way. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
like shiny things, but
Yeah, as long as you can like get the freaking screw out of there.
There's one on there that I don't think will ever come out because it's just rusted
Oh man.
all the way
Good
over
grief.
the.
Yeah.
Aren't you also allergic to the strings?
Yeah, that's something I've been battling for a while. Is just like finding strings I can play that don't ruin my fingers. So I have a
Sure.
nickel allergy, and I learned a long time ago that the coated strings, whether elixirs or Diodario, whatever that is, that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And then I actually had to paint over the bridge and the tailpiece with clear nail polish because it was breaking out my arm
Man,
from being nickel.
Oh.
So
that's crazy.
it's weird. You got to find like weird things that work. And that's
Yeah.
the whole reason I learned how to play slide was because
Okay.
my fingers were so broke out I couldn't play. So I picked up
crazy.
a slide.
That's a crazy like reason to get into that, but it definitely makes sense.
It's weird. It is weird.
That's really interesting.
The coated strings, they seem to manage the problem.
Man. So
I'll just. Oh, sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say I'll never forget. I know that Sam like texted you once. You always post pictures
Yeah.
of your fingers, and he was like, "I don't know what you're doing because mine never looked like that." And you responded, "Well, you don't have a nickel allergy."
Probably.
blew mine.
he deserved it.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I remember
but it used to. Over the past probably year, it's gotten a lot better.
That's cool.
I hope that maybe I'm developing some kind of immunity to it.
Yeah, tolerance.
I hope that.
Adapting.
We'll
That's
see
funny.
though.
Yeah,
Now I
that's,
can
that's
go
so
into the
interesting.
guitar shop and actually play guitars in there
Yeah.
that don't have coated strings.
Yeah, that's that's crazy. That's like it's so interesting like how much like biology was against you on that one. And yeah, here you are like playing professionally.
And I'm not allergic to anything else on the face of this
Yeah,
earth. Not that
that's
I'm
so
aware
funny.
of, at least.
yeah.
But
good
guitar
grief.
strings, nope.
That's so crazy.
Man.
Those ones hurt.
Yeah. That's
It's very weird.
that's really interesting. So, out of like and no specific number here it's needed, but like out of 10 gigs, how many of those gigs are on a Les Paul?
All 10.
All 10?
Pretty much always. I could probably count on 10 fingers how many times I haven't played a Les Paul
Yeah.
on a gig. Because I've got a Firebird that I really, really love, and that
Sure.
was given to me by a good friend. His name's Roger Johnson. Shout out to him.
And Mass. Shout out Mass. Thanks,
Another
Mass.
shout out to
Yes.
Mass.
He's the man.
Mhm.
But yeah, that guitar is really awesome. I've played that, a few gigs here and there.
Yeah.
It's a completely different beast than a Les Paul.
Sure.
It's also it's like playing a canoe.
Yeah.
It's just so long.
It's so long, and it's like it offsets too. Like it's a
Yeah.
little bit from what I understand. Like the whole
It makes
thing
you
is
it makes you
shifted.
only want to play in the freebird position because that's where your hand just naturally
Oh,
sits.
man, good grief.
And then I had a Tele for a while that I really loved.
Yeah.
That was a great guitar.
That was a no caster.
It was an Esquire.
Okay, Esquire.
So
Gotcha.
one pickup and the truth. That's how we always
Amen.
said it. That was a good guitar.
Yeah.
But it honestly it had such like a hot pickup and it sounded closer to a Les Paul than it did
Yeah.
Tele.
Well, and I feel like I've heard from some people, some like good sources that like Les Pauls ideally just sound like a beefier Telecaster. That's kind of what I've heard. I don't know if I like 100% agree, but I definitely like could see how people are arriving to that.
It's the same like pickup configuration, neck pickup, bridge, and then a 3-way selector.
Yeah.
So I could see that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, just get nitty gritty here. What are like, so you've played so many gigs on a Les Paul. What are like a few Les Paul specific tips you can give about like getting the right sounds and tones out of that guitar?
Okay. Volume knob, use it.
Which one though?
Both of them.
Okay.
All four of the knobs, use them as much as you can. That's the beauty of a Les Paul is you get 2 volumes and 2 tones.
Yeah.
And that to me that's where the magic of the Les Paul is because you can have basically 3 channels. You got the neck pickup channel, bridge pickup channel, and then the middle. But I usually ride the bridge volume knob a lot.
Sure.
Like I'll sound check with it on 5, and that way I know I can go down if I want to or up. And then like the neck pickup is a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you want to take a solo, sometimes that neck pickup's where it's at.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
I'm with that.
and then I play a lot on the bridge, but usually with the bridge rolled off.
Okay.
And then if I'm trying to get gnarly, then it's bridge on 10.
Yeah.
But I fiddle with all the knobs all the time, and that's such a distinct character of the Les Paul is having the 2 volumes and 2 tones.
Yeah.
And then make sure it stays in tune before you take it to a gig.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that specifically, but I got lucky with this one.
Sure.
It doesn't go out of tune that much, but
Les Pauls have that issue a lot. I've also like my Les Paul, man, that freaking G string. I love that guitar so much, but that G string does not do anything to stay in tune. It's crazy. So yeah, I totally get that.
I have to stall so we can.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when
Get
you
you
tell a
back in
joke
tune.
to the crowd.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man.
My favorite. Sam
Yeah.
hates my jokes. I learned in high school. I learned like minute-long jokes, like specifically for when my guitar player needs to tune the guitar.
Oh my goodness.
Good strategy.
They're the worst jokes ever,
Yeah.
but I love them.
I think the crowd always, every night, the crowd could use at least one really corny joke.
Yeah, I get that.
I told the crowd this last weekend, like every time a musician gets up on a mic, like that's their chance to practice stand-up. So
That's so true. Oh man. Okay, so you got a Marshall, 70s Marshall.
I'm fortunate enough to own a Marshall now.
Tell me about that.
16-year-old me would have had his mind blown if he known that 22-year-old me had a Marshall,
Heck yeah.
especially a 100 watter. I got it in like a crazy trade deal, and it is everything that I ever hoped it would be.
That's awesome.
It's just insanely loud. You can't even stand in the same room as it if it's turned up to like 7.
Yeah.
It sounds exactly like all the records that were played on those, and there's something about the 100 watter that's got, the bigger transformers and the 4 EL34s, I believe.
Sounds right.
It's got like a punch in the low end that you cannot recreate with a Fender or anything else. Like that Marshall
cool.
thing is definitely a very specific sound, and it kind of has to be done on a Marshall.
Yeah. Man, that's really interesting. I've heard it described as like the thud, like the low end thud kind of you get from that. Like
part
from
of
the
it's
old
the
Marshall
closed
stuff.
back cab, and
Okay.
part of it's just those big transformers. And,
Yeah. Just hitting super hard.
it's an incredible amp, and it also sounds really, really good clean. Like typically, most people associate Marshalls with
Crunch.
heavy riffs
Yeah.
and gain, but they're
Definitely.
really good clean amps.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very lucky to have that. And
That's awesome.
I can't wait to play it when I get home, and
Yeah.
it's such a good amp. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
that's awesome.
it's something I've dreamed about having for a long time.
Yeah. So how would you, I mean, I've, from what we've talked about, like, in the past, you've played, like, all kinds of Fenders, like Deluxes, Fiberluxes, both digital and solid state, or digital and tube, I mean. And you've played, like Vox stuff and, like, Vox-style stuff, like Bad Cats. And obviously, like, you're getting to the Marshall now. Like, in your mind, like, not obviously there's technical stuff, like, different preamp tubes, different power amp tubes, like, whatever. But, like, in your mind, like, what do each of those amps give you, and like how do you think about them in like comparison?
Yeah, I'll always be a Fender guy. Fender is my bread and butter. The Fenders just, I don't know how else to describe it other than that they're kind of like this guitar. They just sound like home. That's what I know, and that's what I'm comfortable with. Like,
sure,
if I ever see a backline on a gig and it's like we got a Fender anything, I'm like, okay, cool, we're good to go.
Yeah.
I think Fenders are so common in working musician land that just people know what they sound like and they feel comfortable with them. For the most part, all Fenders sound relatively similar unless you go into like tweed Fenders. Those start to get a little different, but Silverface, Blackface, they all get the same idea. The Vox thing is kind of like, to me, Voxes are the best rhythm amp ever.
Yeah,
because you can get like a really good breakup sound, but you can't quite get a lead sound. And to me, the clean sound sounds a little too thin.
I get that.
Then Marshalls are just like, kick on the Marshall, put a tube screamer in front of it, and let it rip. That's kind of, I would say that's the three categories. But
sure, that's cool. And from my understanding, it's like, you get this three like huge amps in the like 60s, I guess, and then every other amp that's really been made since then is some evolution or like some version of one of those three. Like I think Tom Bukovac calls like the three primary colors of amps. I
agree. I'm a big fan of Tom Bukovac.
Yeah, he's a man.
I definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
they are the three primary colors.
What is he? Uncle something? Uncle Larry?
Yeah.
Oh, he's the man. I love watching his videos. Okay, so getting out of the super gear heavy stuff. Not everybody that listens to this podcast is a huge guitar fan or like a guitarist. Right. So let's just like in a more general sense, something I've always respected and like appreciated about like your performances is that like at a Nick Stone band gig or at a Bailey Road gig, like when you solo, like you are like putting on a show and you're like putting as much energy and like emotion and like heartfeltness, soul. There we go.
Good.
Like into what you're playing and what you're trying to say through the instrument. Like I'd love to hear you talk about like how you think about like how stage presence relates to like what you're trying to say through the instrument, relates to like what the crowd wants to see and hear from the band they're watching and listening to, like kind of in that world. I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah. My dad told me when I started playing guitar that if you play every note with soul, you can't play a wrong one. And
that's great advice.
Yeah.
it comes down to like how much you're feeling it that night. And even if you're dog tired and you haven't slept or you're running on like 2 Red Bulls and you haven't eaten yet, it depends on how bad you want to play the guitar and how much you want to play like what's inside of here.
Sure.
And that's something that, when I get tired and when I haven't eaten, I struggle with that. But at the end of the day, you're there to play your guitar, and that is a blessing. Yeah. Not it's never a have to. Yeah. It's a get to.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So I try to take those emotions, whatever it is, and play those through the guitar.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like I'm mad because something might happen that day, or sometimes I'm upset, or sometimes it's just pure joy, and I'm like, okay, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
So one of those
awesome.
3 emotions or derivatives of those emotions usually comes out during a solo, and there's never it's never a try to perform this certain way. It's just that's what comes out when I play.
Yeah.
And however I move or however I act when I do that, I can't really control it.
Sure.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's just when you play out of the heart, your hands and your body and your ears and your mind, they all will align and let you do that.
Definitely.
But you have to be in the right headspace to allow yourself to play from the heart and play with soul. So I never really think too hard about performing. I just know that if I play what's in here, the performance will come. And
that's awesome.
It also depends on how people see that. You know, some people, they might like watching an artist who's really still but plays really technical stuff, or they might like watching an artist who plays 3-chord rock and is just moving all over the stage. So I mean, it just depends on who's in the audience. But if you play from the heart, the rest will kind of take care of itself. I think.
All right, let's take a super fast pause. I think the camera's about to shut off on me automatically. We'll be right back. Thank you. All right, let's compose ourselves.
I feel composed.
That's good.
Yeah, he's been cool as a cucumber this whole time.
That's so true. Welcome back after our quick ad break.
Are we going to bring back the ad break audio?
We could. That'd be kind of fun for the last episode of season 1. That'd be cool. We're back. We still have some Columbia Craft beer. Shout out again, Maz, our sponsor of the podcast, Columbia Craft. Hey, I'm just gonna brag on them for a second. Maz and all the bartenders over there are some of the coolest people I've ever met.
Absolutely.
They got a very cool tap room and a great vibe, and it's affordable.
It's a beautiful space.
Parabellum is over there permanently now, and it's the best burger in Columbia. I'm so sorry to all other burgers. There's some great burgers in town, but the Parabellum burger is unbelievably good. I cannot describe, and I'm not just saying that because they gave us a sponsorship.
I think I know where I'm headed after the podcast. I'm going to get a burger.
Yeah.
Dude, it's killer, man. Yeah. It's so good.
And when Sam Bryan has decided something is the best, that is the best. Still nothing has beaten the Wig chicken sandwich.
Yeah, I used to get made fun of for the way I would, because I would
you would present it the same way every time.
Yeah, I'd be
the best chicken sandwich in Colombia.
I'd use the same hand motions every time. It was a whole thing. Anyways, we love Columbia Craft. If you haven't been over there, check it out. It's a great place for beer drinkers and non-beer drinkers alike. It's just great stuff over there. Anyways,
now
let's get back into it.
Gushing about our sponsor.
Yeah.
That's a place we go to legitimately on a regular basis. So it's hard for us not to gush.
That's for sure. I think we're talking about putting on a performance. I think you had something to say.
Yes. What you were describing, I think it's something we've talked about with a few other people on this podcast before. Just in general, we have. But that feeling of you almost black out in a way, and you're not really consciously controlling what you're doing at some point. It's just happening, and then when you're finished with the song or whatever, you're like, oh man, that was really good. Like it felt like it was really good, and
My goal is to musically black out every
Yes.
single night. We'll
That's
say
awesome.
that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I think it comes from the more you play your instrument, whatever it may be, the more comfortable you get with it, and the more you find that your brain can kind of shut off for
Sure.
a minute, and you can just play.
Yeah.
That's a really cool thing. Like if you
Yeah.
get done with a song, you're like, I have no idea what I just played. That means you played it from the heart.
Exactly.
How the audience perceives it, we'll never know. But
And it almost doesn't
Yeah.
even matter.
it doesn't matter.
Honestly.
Because,
Yeah.
Exactly, because when you're playing your guitar and you're in your element and you're having a good time,
Yeah.
that's a thumbs up in my
Are you-
book. Like that's a win.
Or even if you're not, I mean, like blues as a genre and art form is like based around like, and I hope I don't get flack for this. I'm probably not, because we only get like 200 listeners for most podcasts.
Sam says at least once an episode. I hope no one.
No one's ever had anything. Anyways, what I was getting is like, I feel like blues is an art form and like a genre. It's like maybe simpler note choices, but played with like so much nuance and in such like an honest, like vulnerable, like authentic way. And what I've realized is like, for a long time I've taken, and this is like, if you've seen us, you probably think this is like a little silly maybe, because like I take a lot of solos where I'm like, I just want to see like kind of what I can do almost like I want to see if I can hit like a C Lydian lick in the middle of Valerie somehow and like make that work. But like the more I've played guitar, the more it's like what people really want to see and what they can like perceive even beyond that is like you don't have to play fancy stuff. You just have to like play it as authentically and honestly as you like possibly can, which is like it can be kind of a tough like tough goal to hit. I feel like
Right.
sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like probably I'm not a guitar player, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's almost more difficult to do that. I can say like when I sing versus when I play bass, it's like it's harder to portray how I feel with a bass than like vocally, right? Because
Right.
we're
Definitely.
always conveying how we feel emotionally through our voices. But then, so for y'all's ability to be able to portray your emotions through the guitar, like that's a really, I feel like that connects with audiences really well and is really impressive.
Right. Well, the human voice is the greatest instrument of all
it's the
time.
gold standard of
It really is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the other instruments are trying to sound like that, just in a different way. I mean, maybe not drums. Sorry if any drummers are out there. I haven't really found a way that the drums sound like the human voice. But
I've never thought about
bass
that.
is like
That's
an
a good
octave down human voice. Guitar is sitting in
Sure.
the same range. Same with like organ and
Yep.
keys. But yeah, it's cool. I think going off that blues thing, Hendrix said it best. It's easy to play but hard to feel,
Yeah.
and people latch on to that feel thing.
Yeah.
That's very
Because
true.
I never really play anything super complicated on the guitar, but I notice when I play something that feels good to me, usually it feels pretty good to the audience too. And it's
Yeah.
just like sometimes a couple notes and played the right time in the right place are what works.
Definitely. Yeah, and like I totally agree with that for sure. And it's I feel like depending on sort of where you're at in life and what you're going through, it can be like really, I feel like it's almost like acting, which I don't know anything about acting. You've done some acting in like musical theater and stuff. We just had Paul on, who's like a big musical theater guy.
Yes. Love Paul.
But it's like it can be really painful, honestly, to like try to tap into these like emotions and feelings of like I feel like the best solos usually that I've done at least come from a place of like it's like inspired by like some kind of like pain or like negative emotion that you like are trying to get out and express through what you're playing. And it's like it can honestly be like really extra, like it's difficult to even tap into that and express it the way you want to, but it's also difficult to just be willing to like show people like who you are and what you feel and like what you have to express authentically, just because it's like, I don't know, it's scary and it's like painful and there's like it's tough to channel all that sort of negative crap and feelings into your playing. Like it's
You gotta be
uncomfortable.
willing to let it lead you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like the guitar hears every single thought and emotion that you've ever had while you're holding it.
Yeah.
That's the good ones, the bad ones, the ugly ones, the joyful ones.
Mm-hmm.
It knows all that.
Yeah.
And the more time you spend, like in my case with a specific guitar,
Yeah.
just I feel like the guitar kind of gets that out of me. It playing it so much allows me, and it leads me to playing the emotions, even if they're not always good ones. Like sometimes they're angry emotions,
Definitely.
or sometimes they're sad emotions because something happened to me. You never know, but
Definitely.
if you allow it to lead you there,
Mm-hmm.
then it will, and it'll come out exactly and as most honestly as it can.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you got to be willing to show the crowd that side of you.
Yeah.
And they might not pick up on the exact emotion, but they can always tell, like, okay, that was something real. That was something intangible that was just made tangible through a sound.
Yeah.
I
So-
do feel like often the strongest performances come from those like more negative emotions. I know personally
Definitely.
that mine have. I know you had a moment pretty recently of
Yeah.
really just getting it out on the guitar.
Definitely.
It kind of makes me
And
think
bass,
of like,
honestly. Like,
yeah,
at the blues gig, it's like you can play bass extremely soulfully if you like.
You really
are
can.
Right.
If you play with the right drummer and like with the right feel and like the right band in front of the right crowd, like you can. And
it's a very receptive crowd too. So.
yeah, that's a great crowd.
Bass
Shout out
players
Logan
don't get
Blizzard.
enough credit.
They don't. That's true.
I mean, if
I'm
you imagine
with
if
that.
every band played without a bass player, it'd just sound weird.
It's funny because in our band, a lot these days, Illia is both playing bass and she's singing, and so she's getting too much credit as a vocalist and too little credit as a bassist, and so it just kind of balances out. It's kind of perfect.
It is.
There you
It's
go.
it puts me at the same level as everything else.
Yeah.
So.
You're on all of our humble levels now
Yeah,
with guitar
no.
and drums and bass and stuff.
I was gonna say though, it makes
funny.
me think of like you know how every like best acting compilation is just like a dude screaming, like
You're like Adam Driver in
Marriage Story.
or the, oh man, I won't bring up my Dune. What's the guy's name?
Your Dune impression is that what you're
it's
talking
not-
about?
Yeah, but that's so true. That's,
Sam and I can both do one impression really well, and his is
do yours real quick.
no. I don't want to do
I
mine.
think we should hear them both on the podcast.
I think
Okay.
This is not a political podcast, but Ilya's impression is
the
of a political
only
figure.
the only impression I can do is just one word, and it's Donald Trump's "frankly," just frankly.
Yeah, that's it.
But then Sam can
It's
do
the Muad'Dib. It's hold on, it's about to be really loud. Silence! I feel like it's pretty close. I don't know. It might not be. I think Ilya might just be like making me feel good about that. I'm not really sure. If
I
it's
don't feel like I
accurate.
am. I feel like you do that really, really well, and it's moments. I feel like you were holding back on that one,
Maybe a little bit.
just a little bit.
It's a little,
but
it's a little embarrassing. I won't lie.
we're getting sidetracked. I was just gonna talk about how like, people are always like, oh, that's like the best acting when you have like people being like
Adam Driver
portraying like
screaming.
really negative emotions, and I do feel like it's just such a relatable thing. Like everyone's felt extremely angry or extremely sad or just this extreme level of negative emotion you feel like you'll never get through in your life. So I feel like while it is like difficult to channel that emotion and it's difficult to like be vulnerable with that, it also like it creates some really dang good art. Like
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you just let a negative emotion fester, it only builds into something even more negative and even worse.
Definitely.
doesn't help
It's like
anybody.
I found like if I have a negative emotion and I take the guitar and even if I'm just in the garage just
Yeah.
playing and I just get it out, I find myself more level headed,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
which is something that I need to do.
I'm sure they could do like
And,
some.
like what you said, people relate to emotions. Like
Yeah.
we all have them, and that's such
Yeah.
a beautiful thing about music. Is maybe somebody in the crowd is having one of those negative down days,
Yep.
and they hear you play something that comes from a joyful place, and that might just be what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That might have put some positive in their life.
Yeah, like the solo in that Allman Brothers song. Crap, what is the freaking name of it? It's like.
Oh my gosh, I
Jessica.
love it.
Yeah, like that's like a very artistic and like I mean I don't really know I don't know who record like I never knew
That was Dickie Betts.
yeah I never knew Dickie Betts personally, but like it feels really authentic, and it feels authentic of a like a positive emotion, but it still like hits as hard as
Well, that song
B.B.
was
King.
named after one of the daughters of one of the band members. I can't remember which
That's
one
beautiful.
off the top of my head.
That is
And her name
beautiful.
was Jessica.
that's
And she
oh,
was, just a little girl who probably walked around joyous most of the time.
Oh
Yeah.
my
And
gosh.
That's
and
awesome.
Dickie pinned the tune and played it, and that's exactly what it feels like when you listen to it. It's just
Yep.
like somebody that was joyful. It's a
I
happy
know
song.
that makes that song like
So much more
even
beautiful.
more meaningful now that
That's
I know
one of
that.
those songs that'll just like turn your day around. Like if you're having a bad day,
That's true.
No, it really
listen
does.
to Jessica or put on some Grateful Dead,
Mhm.
and like it'll cheer you up. Real
Yeah.
quick.
That's true.
That
That's a great
song,
point.
it gets me hype every single time I hear it. Like it will never change.
And musically, it's very advanced.
It
Like,
is.
That is a hard song to play.
Yeah, they do some weird like backdoor sub stuff. Like I feel like if you could analyze that chord progression in like a freaking college level like music theory class, you know. Okay, so moving on. So there's a couple like really cool things that you have done as far as like professional music stuff that I'd love to talk about. And we kind of run out of time a little bit, but
I'll talk quick.
Okay, so I'd really love to hear some like very, or like as in depth as you're willing to go, like about your experience as like on your first, I think it's your first, but like when you toured with that artist from Nashville. Like I'd love to hear you say some things that like you expected that were accurate and some things that like really surprised you, and just like what that experience was like going from and I don't say this in like a negative way, but going from like more of a local gigging musician capacity to a like on the road touring every night, like playing all over the United States, like that kind of experience.
All over the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah,
The biggest thing I learned is that it'll wear you slap out.
I bet.
It's high percentage of being awake, low percentage of being asleep.
Mhm.
And when you are sleeping, in my case, I was sleeping on a lot of floors, and
Wow.
I was sleeping, it felt like I never really slept good. But I was also super grateful to do it. And so I came into it very open-minded and very willing to put myself through, physical things that were tough.
Yeah.
And I also learned that, like, if you eat McDonald's and Taco Bell twice a day, you'll put on 20 pounds very quickly.
That's
So
great advice.
there's that too. But I think at the end of the day, you travel so much, and you're doing like 8-hour days or 5 or 6 hour days.
Mhm.
You realize that's part of your job.
Mhm.
Like at the end of the day, part of your job is to wake up at 9 a.m.,
Yeah.
drive 6 hours to a gig, and play until 10 o'clock. Like that is a part of it.
Yeah.
So once you kind of make peace with that,
Mhm.
it's the traveling becomes, you start to see it as a job, which is both a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you're traveling for work or when you're traveling to play a show, your mind's kind of focused on that show.
Yeah.
But when you're just traveling for fun, you have time to slow down and take
Sure.
it all in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a weird part of it that you have to make peace with.
Sure.
The legend of you wake up in a different city and don't know where you are is definitely true. Because
Really?
sometimes you will just wake up after a long van ride overnight and you're like, I don't know what state we're in. I have no idea. And you wake up at a gas station and you go in and you get
Sure.
one of the rollers off the grill and a big old
QT hot
soda.
dog though,
Yeah,
man.
I'm telling
QT
you.
hot
dude.
dogs hit
I always
so
like
hard.
the little small burritos.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Those are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens a lot. It's cool to have like a full week of traveling and know that you're playing music in all those cities.
Sure.
That's really cool.
That is cool.
Um,
What about like nitty gritty like guitar stuff? Like you were setting up your
okay,
own rig
yeah,
every
yeah.
night, right?
have two of everything.
Okay.
That's something I learned. I have extra strings. Have an overdrive pedal for backup in case your main one goes out.
Yeah.
If you can take 2 amps, definitely do it.
Sure.
If not, like have a DI solution. I don't know. Just being prepared,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
gear wise, is super important.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you'll find yourself in a city that don't got a guitar center,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't just run and go
Those
grab
exist?
what you need.
There's cities without guitar centers.
There are.
Wow.
Surprisingly.
That's scary.
Shocking.
Or you go to one in like Colombia and it's like a little rough, but
Sure. Yeah.
so you just never know. Be prepared, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
especially gear wise.
Definitely.
And then like knowing your songs, that definitely helps.
Mhm.
And once you get in a routine with a band and you do like have the songs on basically muscle memory, that part of it kind of gets put on the back burner. Now you're having more fun and you're
Mhm.
not thinking as much about trying to remember the specific part that you spent 4 hours learning.
Yeah. Definitely.
So that's when the tour starts to get more fun, is when you have the material down
Yeah.
and just seeing new places. That is such a cool thing.
I bet.
And a lot of times you see these smaller cities that they're not like a top tier travel destination.
Yeah.
And you see the way the locals live and you meet the locals at the venues, and that's a really special thing. 'Cause you see America and American people and just the way they are.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Not like if you go to, for instance, Vegas and you see
Sure.
lots of tourists
Yeah.
in Vegas.
Definitely.
You see the roots.
Yeah.
And that's
cool.
really cool.
All right, so we're about out of time. I'm gonna ask one question, and I know Ilya has a question that we always end every podcast with. But my question, so when we texted you about doing this podcast, I remember you said, like, I think verbatim, like, I got some crazy gig stories. We're a little short on time, so I'm gonna cut you down to only 2 gig stories. But I would love to hear, like, the 2 craziest.
Okay, probably one of the ones that just stuck out in my memory was probably like my second week on tour, and it was our lead singer's birthday, and we were playing in Cincinnati.
Okay.
And she turned 25. Well,
Okay.
that very night we were driving west to Louisville,
Yeah.
which is across the time zone or it's into the Central Time. That's what it is. She turned 25 in Cincinnati. We happened to cross the time zone at the exact right time, and she was 24 again, technically.
Oh, that's crazy.
And
my
then turned
gosh.
25 again when we got to Louisville
Man.
when it hit midnight. So I just thought that was wild.
That is cool.
That's so
really
cool how
cool.
that happens.
Yeah.
And then a lot of my other crazy gig stories are just like insanely long traveling days. Like
Really?
we ate breakfast here and we ate breakfast there or lunch there and then we ate dinner in a completely different state and
Sure.
like 24 hours of traveling at a time.
Oh,
And it was
man.
just
That's
like
brutal.
yeah, I remember one time we played a gig in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And the very next morning we left, or no, after the gig that night maybe, we ended up driving like 25 hours from New Hampshire to Nashville.
Whoa.
Stopped at Niagara Falls on the way there
Yeah.
and came down through Cleveland and all these cool places. And it was just like one of those just wild travel days. And then
Yeah.
all the other stories are just like having a good time with the band. And just
Yeah.
Yeah.
those moments when you're all out of town and you're all just locked into your music and locked into traveling. And you get really close with everybody you're with.
Yeah.
And your humor goes like up times 10.
Yeah.
Because everybody's on the same wavelength with inside jokes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of
No,
fun
that
with
is
that
fun.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the most concise I could probably put it.
Sure. All right, that was quick. So I'm gonna squeeze in one more super fast question.
Wait, real quick. I have one
Yes,
question.
go ahead.
How many U.S. states have you been to?
I think I'm at 24 or 25 states that I've played
Nice.
gigs in.
It's cool.
Um,
You've played
I
gigs
can't-
in specifically.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think I've been to like 32 or 33 states.
Sure.
But last year we played somewhere in the low 20s, and then this year I've crossed a few off the list.
That's awesome.
So I'm really grateful to be able to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, so real quick before we wrap up, so like you were at a point that I think a lot of guitarists like only really like honestly just like dream of getting, because you're doing music full time, you're playing guitar with bands on the road sometimes, like locally sometimes, and you're crushing it. What advice would you give to, let's say, like a 15-year-old guy that's like picking up guitar and like improving a lot and spending hours and hours of his time or her time practicing, but their time practicing, like that really wants to do the professional musician thing? Like, what advice could you give them to get towards the level that you're at right now?
Being prepared, being on time, knowing your stuff.
It's always the same thing.
Same
I was
thing.
gonna say that you hear that answer a lot.
Yeah.
And then a fourth answer to that question that everybody might not say is going back to that thing of just playing with soul and playing with heart. Like people
Yeah.
pick up on that,
Sure.
and that's ultimately something that will entertain a crowd.
Yeah.
And your ability to do that, I think, can really help you get in front of audiences. And if you pair that with the other three, I think you'd be in good shape. And then the other thing is just chase real music. Chase the stuff that inspires you.
Mhm.
Try to play stuff like that or try to write it, but chase music where you're like, okay, my heart is 100% in this. I'm invested. I'm feeling great about it. Chase that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's something I learned in Nashville. It's like a lot of the people there they're just playing songs written by somebody else.
Yeah.
And I personally don't want to do that. I want to have a stake in what we're writing and what we're playing, and that's where I find that my heart is a lot easier to be
Sure.
expressed in those kind of situations. But
That's awesome.
I guess that would be my 4 or 5 pieces of
Yeah.
advice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You want to wrap us up?
Yeah. We always like to ask just about like your favorite local spots.
Okay.
So are you a coffee drinker? I'm going to ask first.
I'm not. If I drink coffee, I just drink it black. but-
Okay. Well, if you were going to go to a coffee shop, where would you go?
Ooh, that's really tough. I don't know. My girlfriend Brooke, shout out to her.
I love you,
She
Brooke.
Shout out to Brooke
works
and
at
Maz.
Starbucks.
And Maz.
And Maz, another shout out to
Yeah.
Maz. But my girlfriend works at Starbucks, so I would
Okay.
biasedly go there.
Sure.
For sure. I mean, you got to, there's a reason
I
to
will
go.
say, though, she does make some really awesome drinks, and she'll bring something home every once in a while. She's like, try this. I'm like, that's really good. What is that? And she's like, I just made it.
Dang.
That's really cool.
Wow.
That's
So,
cool.
When I do drink coffee, it's made by my beautiful girlfriend.
Very cool.
That's very cool. Excuse me.
You got it.
I'm doing great. Okay, where's your favorite? It's been a minute since we've done
Dinner. Food.
dinner, food.
Yeah.
Okay,
Ooh.
I kind of do it as a two-part. Or like, if you were gonna go hang out, like either by yourself or like with friends, where would you go? And then if you were gonna go on like a date night, where would you go?
Okay, that's tough. To hang out with friends, like at a restaurant or like in a brewery count,
Whatever.
Wherever.
I would definitely Columbia Craft. Like I know
Columbia Craft
I know
sponsors
we
this
Craft.
episode.
sponsored this video, but like we are genuine patrons of Columbia Craft. We
Yeah.
go there often,
Yes.
strictly to hang out and grab
Yeah.
a couple drinks.
Definitely.
On a date night, Brooke and I like to mix it up a lot. Like we like to try different things. So that's kind of tough. We go somewhere different every time.
Yeah.
But best food in Columbia is kind of a sleeper. It's Rush's.
Oh, that's a hot take, man. I don't know
It's
if I can get behind
rough.
that. That's probably the most controversial answer to
That is
this
a pretty
question
controversial
we've ever
answer.
gotten.
I'm all for a date night at Rush's.
What do you
Some
get? What's your
fried
order?
chicken, maybe a barbecue sandwich,
Okay.
chili slaw dog,
You said hold on. I'm sorry. You said the best food in Columbia.
best fast food.
Best.
Okay.
That's more.
That's a good
reasonable.
clarification.
But it's not. It's so localized to Columbia that it's not just like saying McDonald's. Like
That's true.
Rush's is a Columbia
That's
thing.
fair.
That's a good point.
So it kind of is.
Is it just Columbia? I thought it was more than just Columbia.
It's like Columbia and Lexington.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So
They're definitely dwindling in size.
yeah,
So
they are going down.
It's a bummer.
So support Rush's. Keep them in business.
Keep it
That's-
local.
that's fair.
Places
Keep
going.
good food and cheap food around.
Cookout feels local. I know it's like kind of not.
It's a southern thing
Cookouts
at least.
Want to be Rush's.
That's dude, you're saying more and more controversial stuff. Is there anything? Did we miss?
I guess like
You already said drinks. Like
yeah,
Columbia
you
Craft.
did. Yeah, because I was gonna ask about a bar, but
I guess that's it.
I guess
Well-
Columbia Craft is the bar, huh?
That's where I find myself the most when I'm going to a bar.
That's true.
Probably Columbia Craft.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Manning Feldner, amazing guitarist. Do not miss
Oh.
his playing. He plays with Nick Stone Band around like Columbia and elsewhere. And he plays with Bailey Road. I guess they're more based out of Myrtle's Inlet, Myrtle Beach area. If you ever get the chance to see him play, you will not regret it. He is phenomenal. Like one of the most.
Really is.
Like
Thank
I'm
you.
not just
Thank
trying
you.
to hype him up here. Like one of the best guitarists like I think I've seen in Columbia by far, and that I have the pleasure of
Thank you.
knowing personally. We're at the Jam Room Studio. It's a really cool place to record some music. We got Zach Bingham back there, run some faders for us, and if it
I
sounds
just
good,
messed up
it's
the microphone. Sorry,
No.
Zach.
yeah. If it sounds good, it's because Zach at the Jam Room is crushing it. One of the Zachs here. Jam Room is so great. They have multiple Zachs, which is, I mean, name another studio that has more than one Zach. That's so crazy to me. But genuinely very cool place to record music. They have a dedicated mastering room that I'm a huge fan of. Actually, just my old college band Laundry Dog just recorded and mastered here, and it sounded freaking great.
It does sound amazing. Shout out
Sounded
Laundry
very,
Dog.
very, very good because Zach mixed it, Jay mastered it, and it's beautiful. If you like the video, unfortunately, we couldn't get Jason Bozeman here, JB Creative. We miss him a whole lot, but he's crushing it around town.
He's got a lot going on right now.
He does, yeah. Check him out maybe if you like the old stuff, and then I did all the video for this, so if you like it, if you like this one,
Check out Sam Bryant
maybe
Creative.
check out sambryant.creative on Instagram. It's going to be limited because I'm operating a camera and also co-hosting this podcast with my lovely duo partner Illia.
And shout out to both of these two. Well, actually,
man.
3 wonderful musicians in here.
thank you, man.
Definitely go check them out. Follow them on socials. Watch their gigs. And I also want to say thank y'all for having me. I've had a
Absolutely.
blast.
It's
Thanks
been a
for
pleasure,
being
man.
here.
Yeah, this is super
Yeah.
fun.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, we're online at Sam and Illia. That's SAM and ILLIA. We do a lot. We're doing more like band stuff these days. So if you want like a little trio or a quartet for something, hit us up. We love playing music. We love just showing up and entertaining people as well. It's been a lot of fun doing this podcast. We're going to conclude season 1. I'm not really sure what the future is going to look like or when season 2 might debut.
We're going to take a little break.
Yeah.
Just kind of get everything back together.
Oh, yeah. But if you're one of the longtime listeners, we really appreciate it. Also, if you're one of the guests that have been here, we really appreciate it. We've had some awesome people on the podcast.
Fantastic guests.
Rodney, Paul, Paisley, Brendan, who else?
Natalie.
Natalie was awesome.
It's like one of my
Brian
favorite
was
episodes.
awesome. I mean, we've had
Brian,
so many good
yeah.
episodes. I'm not thinking of
It's
the
like
other
hard to
guests,
think
but
of everyone, but like everyone has been a really, really fantastic guest.
We've
And
had some
just,
heavy hitter
yeah.
Columbia musicians on the podcast, and we really appreciate their time. And hey, the episodes are still up. I doubt most of y'all have listened to every single episode all the way through. Maybe if you're just itching for some more Jam Room podcasts, go back and re-listen or finish the podcast that you haven't listened to. Every single one of the people we've had on had some amazing things to say.
some really interesting perspectives.
yeah.
Like lots of just very cool personalized stories.
Yeah.
Like,
But
I don't know.
we really appreciate y'all for listening. Chris Reed, I think, is still a patron. I'm gonna have to tell him to cancel his subscription because we're about to take a break. Don't want him
Chris
paying-
was also a guest.
and Chris was a guest. Chris was an awesome guest. How do we forget Chris? That was like one of the best episodes we had.
Chris Reed was a guest,
He was
and he's our
incredible.
only patron. Thank
Such a
you,
nice
Chris.
We'll see you on season 2. We appreciate it. I don't think I've missed anything.
You got anything to promote?
Yeah, anything you want to promote, Manning, before
Nothing
we
I
get out of
know
here?
of, but
Next
thank y'all
Stone
for having
Band,
me.
you guys got some music coming out, right?
Oh yeah, we do. We just had a song released. It's under Nick Stone. It's on all streaming platforms. Our last song is called Gas Station Wine. We've got a
Heck
bunch
yeah.
of other stuff out as well. If you feel led to check it out, that'd be great. If not, no worries. And then I reckon my Instagram is just Manning Feldner.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next Stone Band, I'm going to hype them up for a second. They do a really cool original thing. They do like a country organ trio thing, or organ quartet, I guess. And they got some absolute killers playing with them. I mean, they got Manning, Evan, Byron, and Nick, and all 4 of them are just incredible.
A crazy quartet.
Definitely
yeah.
check them out. They
Thank you.
they write some beautiful music.
We appreciate it.
I think that's about it. See y'all in season 2. Thanks so much for supporting us and listening to this. We're excited to get cracking on what season 2 is going to look like for us. And yeah, take it easy.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Cheers, y'all.
Thanks to Columbia Craft again for sponsoring us.
I'm
And
out of
that's about it.
beer.
Hazy IPA. Y'all have a good one.